Globalization processes are really developing, and over the last 30 years the ways in which globalization developed has been steadily growing. We can see that the international trade growth rate has doubled, or the growth rate is the double of the world GDP growth rate, and also the FDI, which is another form of globalization. The way in which this kind of globalization increased has been 4 times the GDP world growth rate. So this means that it is an unavoidable process that takes place and develops in our economy. This has always been the case, but it steadily increases years by years. We can speak about a new globalization paradigm in the sense that before, firm strategies were to offshore functions, so that is to say parts of their production chain or their value chain. They were offshoring the production function, or in general the low value added functions. Now what they do, and what they generally do, is to offshore tasks, that is to say part of these functions, and this may create a lot of threats to tasks, to jobs that were before untradable, and they are now tradable because of the very low coordination costs that are in place thanks to the development of ICTs and to the transport technologies that have allowed coordination costs and transport costs to be much lower than before. The risks are in terms of an increasing competition that comes from developing countries and that are, let's say, a risk for local regions when or local economies when they are unable to face these kind of changes. So if they, let's say, lose jobs, if they lose their activities, their core activities, they risk to be really in danger. While if they put in place strategies in order to, let's say, be able to redirect their economies towards more secure or more, let's say, value-added activities, then that they can protect and save their jobs and, in general, value-added of their economies. It's true that globalization is not only a threat, but it's also an opportunity for economies, for developed economies. These opportunities are advantages, for example, at different levels. First of all, we have macroeconomic advantages, because when we open our economies to trade, we have immediately what have been called the terms of trade advantages. We import from developing countries goods, and in this period intermediate goods that are produced at lower costs, and this means that they are sold at lower prices, and this protects our inflation rates. So we have really a deflationary effect that is put in place thanks to this globalization effect processes. But then we have also other kinds of advantages. For example, we have a natural selection of the most efficient firms, because when competition increases, firms that remain on the market are the more effective, the more efficient, the more productive, and you can do nothing about that. There is let's say, a natural selection, and you will end up by having the most efficient firms still present in the market. These are advantages that can be, let's say, highlighted. They have to have some strategic elements or put in place some strategic policies in order to compete. And these elements that have to be present are, for example, the capacity of the industrial tissue to adjust to the new rules of the markets. You have to have a flexible labor market in your economy. You have to have a lot of investments in your economy, and a lot of, for example, advanced services that allow you to remain competitive and to be at the level of the best world economies. Of course, not all our regions are able to do that. We will face let's say winners and losers after this period of globalization and also of economic crisis that we are facing. There will be winners and losers, and I expect that the winners will be the strongest regions that we have at present, where there are more, let's say, advanced activities already present in the areas, like our capital regions. So in any case, we will have to, Europe in general will have to face competition with its champions, and this means that disparities, regional disparities, will inevitably widen. This depends very much on the policies that we do and that the EU does. And I think that the European policies, we don't have any counterfactual event to say that if we hadn't got these European policies, or structural policies, our regions would have been worse or better. But in any case, in front of this economic crisis, what the EU should do, and I think there is already a debate going on at the DG Regio saying that the structural policies that will be put in place from now on will have to be very careful, because we'll have to face this increased disparity that we will have after the crisis. So a way to do that is to be very strongly related to the short-term policies that our national governments are doing. So the short-term policy will be a demand-driven policy, that is to say they will try to help consume to increase and demand to increase in order to face this economic crisis. And then the structural long-term policies have to reinforce these elements of short-term and to stabilize the economies in the long period. The Regional Science Association International is a worldwide association which is able to, let's say, make people and scientists at the regional level meeting each other and facing and confronting the problems, methodological problems, theoretical problems, but also policy aspects. We are able to meet all people that are, let's say, experts in these fields, and this network, this worldwide network, is extremely important to keep, let's say, scientists together and to bring forward not only the scientific knowledge but also the policy-oriented knowledge that we have in this field. So, as far as I know, the Regional Science Society International is the only international body it has more than 5,000 individual members all over the world, and facing with the same problems, with the same issues, both theoretical, methodological and policy-oriented issues. So it's really a network that can give a lot to the present situation, also to develop knowledge and culture to these on the issues that we are facing now in the economic crisis and in the globalization process. The Spanish association plays an important role. Sometimes our members do not really understand how much important their role is in our association, because in our international association, the Spanish association plays a very important role, because this is where the most important issues that are present in the Mediterranean countries are developed and are faced and are confronted among scientists. And with other associations, Mediterranean associations like the Italian ones, the French-speaking one, they can really play a role in order to bring to the table, to bring to the attention of other scientists problems that are faced in the Mediterranean areas, and there sometimes are specific for this area, but methodologies, theories that are developed somewhere else can be of extreme importance to solve this kind of problems. So the Spanish Association is a channel, is a vehicle for local problems to be put under the attention of a worldwide scientific audience. So I think we really, as the RSAI president, I really think that the Spanish Association is a very important association that has to be dynamic, has to be present in our international association, and plays an important role for the development of knowledge.